fractures or broken bones in the lower extremities of the horses usually exist typically somewhere between the radius right here, okay, the carpus or the carpal bones, the cannon bone, the fetlock, the pastern, the short pastern or coffin. Fractures can occur anywhere at any time in these areas due to, well, if it's a racehorse, it's not unusual for you to see a chip fracture off the distal lateral radius, which is really common, or any of the carpal bones, the first or second or the upper row, which is the ulnar, radial, or central carpal bone. The cannon bone can get dorsal fractures. You can get a condylar fracture, which is a front to back fracture of usually the lateral portion, but you can get a medial as well. You can get a sagittal fracture through the pastern. You can get chip fractures and/or fractures of the short pastern. The coffin bone can sustain a chip fracture on the extensor process here, or on the actual wings of the coffin out into the feet, or you can fracture the navicular. All these areas are predisposed to this because of the amount of concussion or use of the horse. Race horses, we see these things fairly commonly. Chip fractures in this area of the carpus, cannon bone, and fetlock are very, very common. I've got a radiograph x-ray machine up there. My computer's full of digital radiographs of fractures in all these areas. It's a little bit less common in the coffin bone, but it does occur from time to time of all breeds and species, or all breeds and types or uses, but it's more common probably in the thoroughbred. The major complications associated with the fractures are loss of use. Racehorse chip fractures the carpus. They're basically going to have to either have removal or time off for, if it's a small fragment, to dissolve, to get quiet down, to, basically for the symptoms to subside and or, respond to an injection if that's the course that you choose. Cannon bone fractures, if it's a saucer fracture, the preferred treatment is lag screw fixation or compression fracture, to go ahead and put a screw in here and compress the fracture line. Condylar fractures, we see lag screw fixation, usually one or two. Pastern, same thing, lag screw fixation. Coffin joint fractures, removal, same thing with fetlocks, removal of the chip fractures. Wing fractures, we can either go ahead and nerve the horse, or we can go ahead and try to compress that fracture in. Typically, the only fractures that work for compression in the coffin bone are basically if they're sagittal, right down the middle. After a horse has had a fracture, you have to evaluate how they've recovered. Okay, if the carpus stays distended, the horse stays lame, it's a problem. Then you've got to make a decision to go ahead and decide if this horse needs a career change or needs a change in the level of competition he's going to be at, or possibly he's going to be retired and used for, maybe just recreational use, or if it's breeding stock, whether or not you're going to go ahead and utilize them to be bred. Others can come back and compete, so each injury is unique on how they respond to the therapy, if it's either intra-articular injection, chip fracture removal, or internal fixation via compression screw or lag screw, depending on the location, and whether or not they have gotten sound enough to go ahead and go back to the selected use with which they were purchased or used, whether it be a racehorse, jumper, standard bred, pleasure horse, whatnot, or if they need to be retired, or that they need basically an occupation change. If it was a racehorse, maybe they could survive as a horse that's in the flat, or basically as a show horse. So you have to kind of evaluate each injury as you see fit, or how they respond to the therapy that's been intervened upon.